calm, brisk evening on Sodor. The autumn winds blew across the island, leaves falling from the trees, the wind tickling each engine as their fires were dropped after another hard day's work. At Vickerstown sheds, Hank was resting in one of the engine berths. Parked next to him was Thomas. He and James recently had a journey beyond Sodor, but thanks to both Sodor engines, they were able to finally return home after several days stuck on the mainland. The Steelworks officially acquiring Merlin, Theo, and Lexi as additional support engines. After Frankie and Hurricane, the two main engines, had Thomas helped them by force. Despite Frankie's insistent help from other engines previously, Thomas was relieved and thankful. Hank looked over to the little blue engine. "Well, Thomas, I gotta tell you, those engines mean well, but they sure have their ways of making others stay in for the long haul. I know that they both needed help, and I feel bad that they were just the only two that were working at the steelworks. At least those other experimental engines are helping them out." Hank looked onwards. He then felt a shiver down his boiler. It was then he almost felt like someone was watching him. "What's wrong? There's no ghosts about." "No, Thomas. I sensed the presence of an old engine I encountered a long time ago. And trust me, it wasn't the greatest experience." Thomas was worried but decided to remain silent. "I'll tell you the story, but trust me, it's not the most pleasant sight." And this was the story that Hank told. At the turn of the century, the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad made larger industrial-sized engines, 14 total wheels and a heck of a lot of horsepower. 1928 came, and one of these engines had just come out of the factory. It had no name, not that I knew, but it was big, and it had the number 6666 on its headboards. He was hard-working, mean-spirited, and would try to get his jobs done ahead of everyone else's. But one night, in 1952, everything changed. He was running light engine, eager to get back to the sheds. Unknown to the crew, the points diverted the engine into an abandoned part of the line, which was filled with trees and overgrowth. The driver put on the brakes, but nothing happened. He tried the emergency brake, no difference. The engine was a runaway down a straight, uneven part of track, but to the horror of all, the line ended in a large tree. But by this point, it was already too late. The engine hit the tree head-on, causing its boiler to explode, killing the crew instantly. Upon investigation, it was deemed that the points were at fault, as there were plans to rip up the rails the following year. Inspectors deemed it unsafe to proceed with the plan, fearing more trees could fall over as there wasn't proper equipment back then. The engine's remains were taken away to be scrapped, while the families of the driver and firemen were compensated almost immediately for the accident. However, this isn't where the story ends. Thomas was so worried. Oh dear, then what? Did the engine come back as a ghost, just like him? Your ghostly brother? Nah, Thomas, not the case. But years later, a workman was working the night shift. He was about to make his way home. He thought he could hear the presence of an engine behind him. He turned away, thinking nothing of it. But then the worst was to follow. He heard the whistle of the engine puffing towards the man. He saw in horror. It was the spirit of engine 6666. Quickly, he hid in the bushes, daring not to make a sound if he were spotted. Then the driver got down from its engine. Then a blood-curdling scream followed. To the sheer terror of the workman, he saw a person being... Oh God, please, no. The engine burned him as his fuel source. Thomas was so distraught he vomited instantly. The workman was as white as a ghost. Then the driver got back into the engine and puffed away towards the very spot where he met his end. Slowly, the engine vanished into the darkness and out of sight. The workman made a dead sprint towards the workman's hut, locked the door, and didn't even sleep a wink that night. Hank finished his story. Thomas was very shocked. Did 6666 ever find peace? I don't know that for sure, Thomas. But one thing is for sure, he hasn't been seen since that young workman's encounter. And the workman? He retired in 2006. Still around today at his fine age. But I'll tell you, Thomas, he'd give that rejected mountain type a run for its money. From that flawed story, no shit, Sherlock. Anyways, it's best we get some rest. I'm due back to help Sam out with a few things in Pennsylvania. Tell Sam I said hello, and good luck on your journey, Hank. I'm to head back to my branch line. Rest easy, little Thomas. And don't take too much trucks, like my first rodeo here. Thomas agreed, and soon both engines slept. But Thomas had a sinking feeling in his boiler, not just because of Hank's story, but of if he ever encounters 6666. Between you and me, I don't think that will happen anytime soon. Don't you?